Whether they like it or not, they're never getting rid of me.
Pedro Pascal just dropped a bombshell response to Hollywood's biggest ultimatum this year. The Fantastic Four cast had delivered a shocking "Fire Pedro Pascal or we quit" demand, putting the entire reboot at risk.
I don't really wanna fight no more.
While Pascal is tired of fighting, Disney might just be bowing to the pressure. Here's why. The ultimatum no one saw coming. It all began with a whisper, a strange, out-of-place phrase that started trending on social media like wildfire. Fire Pedro Pascal or we quit. And no, it wasn't just another Twitter tantrum from disgruntled fans. This time, it was reportedly coming from the very top, from within Marvel's own roster of heavyweights. According to insiders close to Disney PR, several Avengers cast members, including a major original six, were disgusted by Pedro Pascal's casting as Reed Richards. Some even saw it as a direct betrayal of the MCU's legacy. Their words, not ours. The tension hit a fever pitch at a private post-premiere after-party in Los Angeles. Sources inside that event confirmed that one very well-known MCU alum, who previously led an Avengers film, stormed out after being told Pedro would be appearing in both Fantastic Four and Avengers: Doomsday, and their quote, "Chilling. If you think this guy's gonna lead the next phase, you can count me out. That wasn't a joke. That was a threat." And fans noticed the shift almost instantly. The previously untouchable PR engine behind Marvel Studios began showing cracks, leaks, rumors, back-channel DMs, all pointed to growing resentment. Pedro Pascal, fresh off his Last of Us and Mandalorian fame, had become a lightning rod, not because of his acting, but because of how fast Disney had made him the face of Phase 5. And yet, when confronted, Pedro played it cool, maybe too cool.
It's been a dream to join the MCU. The movie is called The Fantastic Four. I'll confess, I did all my stretching for real.
But not everyone in the cast was laughing. At the film's global press tour, Pascal was repeatedly grilled about whether he was stepping into a leadership role similar to Tony Stark, and his responses? Cryptic.
There is something that happens within the comics that he sort of, what do you call it? Not commissioned, but drawn in by the Avengers family.
Still, rumors swirled. Pedro Pascal wasn't just cast as Reed Richards. He was allegedly being groomed to be the next face of the MCU. And that, apparently, was the final straw for the original Avengers squad. According to leaked emails from an internal Disney briefing, One Star's rep allegedly told execs, "You're forcing the future of the franchise into a man who wasn't here when it mattered." The response? Silence. But let's rewind for a second. Because for Pedro Pascal, this wasn't just a gig. It was his dream.
I didn't come at it with any sort of attempt at distinguishing it from previous authorships. I need all of the context and all of the information to spiritually enter into an experience.
In fact, Pascal said he wanted the legacy of the Fantastic Four to live in his imagination. But maybe he should have imagined how it'd land with Marvel's veteran actors, because his arrival triggered a civil war behind the scenes. And as social media poured gasoline on the fire, old wounds reopened. The core issue? Power. Pascal was being given too much too fast. He was in The Mandalorian, The Last of Us, Gladiator 2, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And now, he's Reed Richards, a role fans petitioned for John Krasinski to play for over a decade. Pedro? He didn't even campaign for it. Yet somehow, he landed it all. One viral opinion piece even accused Disney of shoving Pedro Pascal down our throats. Critics began pointing out the pattern. A-list actors repeatedly skipped for marquee roles, all while Pascal's name kept coming up. And the Fantastic Four cast? They tried their best to downplay it, but their words say it all.
You know, whether we continue making Fantastic Four movies or not, or the characters continue, I know that we're going to be like friends for life. Whether they like it or not, they're never getting rid of me.
Was that playful or possessive? What followed next was unprecedented. A leaked call sheet from Avengers. Doomsday showed Pedro Pascal front and center, while legacy heroes were being shuffled to the sidelines. One insider called it a power pivot. It's like watching the death of the old Marvel right in front of our eyes. And fans weren't alone in that sentiment. Behind closed doors, Marvel's biggest stars began organizing. Not just to express concerns, but to issue ultimatums. One of them, we're told, said the words that would break the fandom: "Fire Pedro Pascal or we quit." Some called it a bluff, but others didn't, because within 48 hours of that ultimatum, Disney pulled the plug on Fantastic Four 2 pre-production. Coincidence? Hardly. Even more damning, Pascal's interviews suddenly shifted in tone. Was he referring to critics or castmates? Regardless, the battle lines were drawn, and at the center of it all, one man, a self-declared MCU fanboy, a dramatic actor, a Marvel newcomer, Pedro Pascal. And yet, in a shocking turn of irony, the Fantastic Four movie he starred in, it's good. Critics praised it for its emotional depth, stunning visuals, and ensemble chemistry. Even Pascal's co-stars couldn't help but gush.
Reed's position is everything's going to change. And of course, every new parent, I guess, feels a multitude of all those things at different times and keeps being like, no, I'm going to remain the exact same person. But of course, you're completely different even from that moment. And that kind of anchored us, really.
And yet, it may never get a sequel, because Disney's facing a rebellion from within. And now, their most prized Phase 5 project is officially labeled under review. Coming up next, a deeper look at which Avengers cast members are demanding Pedro's removal, the shocking backlash from fan events, and the moment Pedro Pascal almost walked off set. The curtain's just been lifted, and what's behind it is uglier than anyone imagined. When Marvel legends clash, the showdown that fans thought they'd never witness is unfolding in real time, not in a film, but behind the scenes. And it's not Kang or Galactus tearing the MCU apart. It's Pedro Pascal versus the original Avengers. You read that right. This isn't fan fiction. This isn't some clickbait theory from Reddit. This is coming from sources inside both Marvel Studios and Disney's executive ranks. Sources who now claim that a legacy revolt is in full effect. Why? Because for the first time since Iron Man, Marvel's A-listers weren't consulted before a massive shift. And that shift was Pedro Pascal. It started subtly. The Russo brothers allegedly weren't even aware of Pascal's full character arc until late-stage script revisions. Then came reports that Kevin Feige bypassed his usual internal casting circle to greenlight Pedro, under pressure from Disney's corporate board, desperate to inject star power into Phase 5. And it worked, at first. That is, until the inner circle of MCU talent, stars like Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, and yes, even Scarlett Johansson, found out what was happening. One rep reportedly warned, "You don't build a franchise off the back of someone who's already overexposed." But the real damage? It came after Pedro's now infamous Stretch interview, where fans noticed subtle shade from his co-stars.
I loved more than anything being a part of an ensemble, and that it is the Fantastic Four.
Beautiful quote, right? But off camera, that chemistry didn't always hold. Multiple crew members leaked that tensions between Pedro and his co-lead Vanessa Kirby boiled over more than once, particularly during reshoots in Atlanta, where Pascal allegedly tried rewriting scenes to focus more on Reed's moral crisis. That's not just ego, that's a narrative takeover. Kirby, however, didn't stay silent. In a recent promo interview, she made a point of clarifying what really drove the emotional core of the film, and spoiler alert, it wasn't Reed Richards.
Because at the end of the day, we were facing this scary, space threat, but that at the same time, in their minds, they'd probably be worrying about the newborn baby or about to give birth or whatever.
No mention of Pascal, no praise for his performance, just emphasis on the family, a not-so-subtle rebuke of Pedro's alleged alpha antics on set. And then came Comic-Con 2025. Pedro was scheduled to appear, alongside the entire cast for Marvel's Hall H presentation, a highly anticipated moment for fans. Only the OG Avengers didn't show. Not a single one, not Hemsworth, not Cheadle, not even Tom Holland, who'd previously hinted at wanting to team up with Johnny Storm. One journalist described it as the quietest rebellion Marvel's ever faced. Pedro, visibly flustered, pushed through the panel. He smiled, he laughed, he praised the fans, but the subtext was brutal. A clip that went viral showed Pascal being asked whether his Reed Richards would lead the Avengers, and his answer:
It isn't necessarily something that my character's future entails. What was the rest of the question? And I'm being honest in that. It's like I'm not even trying to avoid spoilers.
Yet the Fantastic Four press tour kept barreling forward, full steam. Disney had too much riding on it, and Pedro was their golden boy. But then came the nail in the coffin. A leaked memo, reportedly from an internal Marvel casting department, revealed this chilling phrase: "We are not proceeding with a sequel to Fantastic Four until leadership alignment has been restored." Leadership alignment? Translation: someone at the top refused to work with Pedro again. Fans quickly turned their attention to one name in particular: Anthony Mackie, aka Sam Wilson, Captain America. Why? Because Mackie had previously been attached to Avengers Doomsday, where Reed Richards was set to play a central role in the team dynamic. But suddenly, Mackie's schedule was conflicted, and insiders say Mackie told producers he was not interested in joining a vanity project. Let that sink in. Not a team film, a vanity project. Was that directed at Pedro? Then came more cryptic moments. Vanessa Kirby, again, in an international press interview, doubled down on Sue Storm's importance, but this time she got emotional.
She was never sidelined in any way, just because she was a mother. And if anything, it's kind of, it was I mean, it's like the truest thing ever, right? And mothers just crack on and get on with life.
Is it just good press or a response to being overshadowed? Whatever it was, the internet exploded, Hashfire Pedro trended again, and in the background, the real victims may be the cast themselves, stuck between loyalty to their craft and corporate agendas. Joe Quinn, who plays Johnny Storm, was asked point blank in a podcast whether he'd gotten a tattoo like the original Avengers cast did. His response?
We got tattoos on our hearts. Yeah. Inside
my soul.
Maybe if we do a sequel, we will.
Yeah.
A sequel, that may never happen, because Disney is now in damage control mode. And Pedro, well, he's still Pedro. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and everywhere. When asked in another clip about how he balances all the roles, from Reed Richards to Joel from The Last of Us, his response was peak Pascal.
Yeah, and I wasn't in very good shape at this, and I had to whip it into shape.
Translation, he knows how. Much scrutiny he's under. But here's the twist. Despite everything, the tension, the rumors, the threats, Pedro's performance is being hailed by fans as career-defining. Even those who hated the casting walked out impressed. So now the question becomes, if Pedro's Reed is this good, but the old Avengers refuse to play ball, who blinks first? Disney or the legends who built the MCU? Next, we go inside the cast shakeups, the post-credits scene that was scrapped because of backstage drama, and why Pedro Pascal was this close to walking off the franchise. Pedro Pascal was about to walk. Forget Reed Richards. For a moment, forget Fantastic Four. Because what was unraveling behind the scenes was so volatile, so contentious, that Pedro Pascal almost did something no one saw coming. He almost walked. Not from a panel, not from a press event, not from a red carpet. From the entire franchise. And we're not talking theories here. We're talking credible whispers from multiple insiders who claim that in the final month of reshoots, Pascal called a private meeting with Kevin Feige and told him the truth. This is not what I signed up for. The breaking point? A moment so subtle that it didn't make headlines, but insiders say it sent Pedro spiraling. A full-blown editorial overhaul of a pivotal post-credits scene, which originally featured Reed Richards stepping into leadership of the multiversal Avengers, was yanked, scrapped, gone. Because two key players, both of them Avengers legends, refused to film their parts unless the scene was rewritten without Pedro. And Disney gave in. Pascal didn't take it lightly. According to two separate reports, Pedro told his team the situation was disrespectful, insecure, and beneath a studio like Marvel. He felt sidelined by a group that, quote, feared his momentum. What's wild is that at the time, he was right. His interviews had begun trending globally. TikTok edits called him MCU's new daddy. He was fresh off The Last of Us, The Mandalorian, and critics were now calling him the best Reed Richards yet. And yet, internally, Marvel was panicking. Why? Because one man's rising star had triggered a domino effect. Let's rewind to what happened behind the cameras. On the day the cast shot the iconic team together sequence in the final act, sources say Pedro repeatedly pushed for alternate takes, improvising lines meant to deepen Reed's internal conflict. Direct quote. From a frustrated crew member, he was trying to turn Reed into Tony Stark meets Joel. It wasn't the tone we wanted. That clash reportedly led to multiple re-edits, and even a pause in production, while Kevin Feige flew to set for a private meeting. But by then, the damage was done. Even co-stars, though careful in interviews, showed signs of friction. Eben Moss-Bachrach, who plays Ben Grimm, was asked how the suit work and FX team affected his performance. His answer?
This character, Ben Grimm, is a real team effort. I mean, it's a performance capture. So the suit that I'm wearing is called a fractal suit, and it almost looks like a beta version of Google Maps or something. And it's
Notice what's not there? Any mention of Pascal, despite Pedro being Ben's primary scene partner. Later in the same interview, when asked about Pedro's magic as an actor,
obviously, outside of that, he's magnetic, charismatic, and people are really, drawn to that stuff. But I think he's working so much as an actor.
Polite, respectful, but detached. Compare that to how previous Avengers hyped up Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, even Tom Holland. Pedro wasn't getting that same embrace, which is exactly what led to that moment backstage, when Pedro allegedly told Feige, "I won't stay where I'm not welcome." Feige's response? Sources say he promised to de-escalate the tensions, but behind the scenes, Marvel made their choice. They began softening Pedro's future role. Lines in Avengers, Doomsday were rewritten, cameos in Thunderbolts and Secret Wars were pulled. Even animated projects began shifting focus to other characters. Pedro, according to one insider, felt the walls closing in. So why didn't he quit? Because of the fans. The same fans who turned #PedroAsReed into a global trend. The ones who showed up to every international premiere. The ones who believed in his Reed Richards. Pedro addressed that directly in one of his final promo interviews. But despite the politics, Pedro loved being part of it all. But not everyone shared that sentiment. Vanessa Kirby was reportedly blindsided by how much the media focused on Pedro alone. She'd privately expressed concern that Sue Storm was being sidelined in both marketing and script revisions. And at one point, a publicist had to allegedly shut down a question mid-interview when a reporter asked if Kirby was okay playing second fiddle. Then came the mole, a crew member who leaked photos of the original post-credits scene, showing Reed receiving a secret call from Nick Fury, implying he'd lead Earth's next-gen heroes. But the scene was never released. Disney buried it. And when asked about it directly in another interview, Pascal simply said,
I've decided we can't.
Short, sharp, final, almost like he knew the moment had passed. Yet here's the twist. Test. Audiences who saw early cuts with that scene gave the movie higher scores than the final version, meaning the fans wanted Pedro to lead, but the Avengers cast didn't. So now we're here, stuck between a phase that can't move forward and a cast that refuses to move with it. And Pedro, still showing up, still smiling, but clearly aware that the role he once called a dream might just become his biggest nightmare. Coming up next in Part 4, The Fallout, we reveal how Disney may be forced to choose between the new generation and the old guard, the last-minute project delays, and how Pedro's potential MCU exit could send the entire franchise into chaos. The Fallout. The war is no longer behind closed doors, because as of this moment, Disney is trapped in an impossible position, with Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe hanging in the balance. On one side, Pedro Pascal, the breakout megastar, the Fantastic Four's reluctant new leader, the man cast to reshape the MCU for a post-Tony Stark era. On the other, a group of veterans who built the franchise from the ground up, and who are now daring Disney to call their bluff. Fire Pedro Pascal or we walk. Those words weren't said in an interview. They were said in a meeting room. And now, we're witnessing the fallout, because the storm that's been quietly brewing behind the scenes just claimed its first casualty. Fantastic Four, First Family, the highly anticipated sequel to Fantastic Four, First Steps, has been officially delayed indefinitely. Not postponed, not rescheduled, indefinitely. A report from The Hollywood Reporter broke the news early, stating that Disney's top brass pulled the plug on pre-production after significant leadership conflicts, a phrase that barely conceals the chaos happening behind the scenes. And now we know exactly what that means, because just 2 weeks ago, Pedro Pascal wasn't in Atlanta filming Doomsday as scheduled. He was in New York, shooting a guest appearance for a completely different series, sending a crystal clear message. He's no longer waiting on Marvel. Meanwhile, insiders report that internal emails leaked from Marvel Studios suggest executives have begun reworking the Doomsday script without Pedro's involvement. In other words, they're writing Reed Richards out of the next Avengers film. Let that sink in. The man cast to be the next generation's Tony Stark, now being erased before the next phase can even launch. Why? Because Disney is bleeding from both ends. Fans are divided. Some adore Pedro's take on Reed. Others call it miscast legacy bait. Actors are furious. They weren't warned, weren't asked, and now don't trust Marvel's leadership. Even Marvel's own directors are conflicted. According to one source close to the Russo brothers, the two were caught completely off guard by Pedro's influence over Fantastic Four, and were not consulted about the franchise's merging timelines. A move that many see as a direct violation of the collaborative spirit Marvel was built on. What's worse, the Fantastic Four cast themselves are starting to unravel under the pressure. Joe Quinn, who brought humor and fire to Johnny Storm, appeared on a podcast last week and was visibly uncomfortable when asked if he was excited for the sequel. His answer? We'll see if there's even a sequel to be excited about. That wasn't sarcasm, that was resignation. Meanwhile, Pedro's co-star Vanessa Kirby gave her most honest response yet. When pressed about whether she'd return for another film with the same cast, there was warmth in her tone, but also distance, almost as if she's speaking about Sue Storm as a standalone, not someone in a team dynamic she's eager to revisit. And then came the breaking point. San Diego Comic-Con 2025. Marvel's panel, meant to be the defining moment of the weekend, was canceled. No cast, no teaser, no new phase roadmap, nothing. And just 1 week later, the original cast of the Avengers began leaking negotiations with DC, Apple, and even Netflix. Translation: the old Marvel guard is looking for an exit, but Disney isn't going down without a fight. Because even as they delay projects, the one thing they haven't done is officially part ways with Pedro Pascal. Why? Because Fantastic Four, First Steps is actually performing incredibly well, critically and commercially, despite the controversy, despite the boycotts, despite the headlines. The film currently holds an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, and fans have been praising Pascal's performance in every fan screening, IMAX rewatch, and online reaction thread, which leaves Disney with a bitter choice. Option 1, fire Pedro Pascal and salvage the relationships with their original stars, at the cost of millions in marketing, reshoots, and fan trust. Option 2, keep Pedro Pascal and risk a full-on talent exodus, losing their legacy characters and replacing them with a Cast the fandom didn't ask for, so what's it going to be? According to multiple executives, Disney's leaning toward option 3, the multiverse exit. This rumored solution involves recasting Reed Richards from another universe, introducing a variant version played by a less divisive actor, allowing Pedro's Reed to quietly fade out after Doomsday or in Secret Wars. Sound familiar? It's exactly what they did to write out Iron Man and Captain America, but with far more spin. And Pedro? He's not waiting around. In a recent interview, he addressed the drama without ever naming names.
Sometimes you can't help but be curious, or you're looking for affirmation, or you're incredibly excited about something and the news is out and you want, to kind of like have a celebration, and sometimes you will not see what you want to see, and what happens is that you can get past that and it'll push you into really focusing on what the most important part of all of it is.
His smile was there, but the weariness behind his eyes said everything. So where does Marvel go from here? The answer may lie in a post-credits scene that audiences never got to see, but insiders say was filmed. Pedro's Reed staring out at a collapsing universe and whispering 2 haunting words, "It's all gone." Now, that line might just apply to the MCU itself, because no matter what Disney decides, the damage has been done. Friendships are broken, contracts are shredded, and the once infallible Marvel brand is bleeding out in real time. Stay tuned. This story isn't over. Not by a long shot. That's all, folks. For more updates on what's trendy, please click on the card showing on the screen.
Oh, now they will. The greatest thing that could ever have happened to Marvel was having Disney buy us.
At first, the creators of Marvel's legendary characters seemed thrilled about the merger with Disney. It felt like a dream come true. But over time, that excitement faded. Now, the tone has completely shifted.
Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know, Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world.
The very people who gave life to these heroes are speaking out, sending a loud and clear message. Disrespect will not be tolerated. So what went wrong between Marvel's creators and the House of Mouse? The message that changed everything. Imagine if the most powerful entertainment corporation in the world was finally forced to face its own moral reckoning. It's May 2025, and what started as a grassroots rebellion by grieving families has grown into a movement that's reshaping the entire entertainment industry. These weren't just legal victories, they were declarations of independence from corporate tyranny. The thunderclap moment came when they stood up and said, "Enough!" Every major studio executive in Hollywood felt it. The creator families, armed with nothing but determination and the Copyright Act of 1976, had managed to make Disney, yes, the same Disney that owns ABC, ESPN, and controls almost 40% of the box office market blink. This wasn't David versus Goliath anymore. This was David assembling his own Avengers team.
It's a marriage made in heaven, and with all the power of Disney behind us, well, you see the results. You see movies like The Avengers, Iron Man, they're all tremendous hits.
So it was the luckiest thing in the world that Disney bought Marvel. The settlements of 2023 weren't just legal documents. They were surrender papers from a corporate empire that had finally been forced to acknowledge its creative foundation. When Steve Ditko's estate settled in December 2023 and the other creator estates in June 2023, they didn't just win money. They won something infinitely more valuable, the power to redefine what respect means in the entertainment industry. Let's be crystal clear about what happened here. For decades, Disney operated under a simple principle. We own what we buy, and what we own, we control absolutely. The idea that creators or their families might have ongoing rights was treated as a quaint notion from a bygone era. But these families, these real-life Avengers, proved that the principle was built on quicksand.
Kid, I'm Mickey Mouse. I can do whatever the hell I want.
Won't people think that's a lazy and desperate nostalgia-milking cash grab?
They'll think whatever I tell them to think. Want to be Dr. Doom?
Dr. Doom?
Hey, is there an echo in here or something? Yeah, Dr. Doom. I'll give you your own Avengers film. Hell, I'll even give you two.
This chilling portrayal of corporate arrogance in our source material perfectly captures the mentality that these families successfully challenged. What makes this transformation truly revolutionary is its timing. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has generated over $22.93 billion in box office revenue alone. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent the value of creative ideas that were once compensated at $20 per page. Imagine creating Iron Man and being told your contribution was worth the same as a pizza order in 1963. The psychological warfare these these families endured was immense. Disney's strategy was obvious. Make it so painful, so expensive, so time-consuming to fight that surrender becomes preferable to justice. But they misunderstood something fundamental about creative families. These aren't venture capitalists motivated purely by profit. These are people fighting for their parents, grandparents' legacies. When Marvel sued the heirs using the work-for-hire argument, they essentially claimed that creativity has no ongoing value, that the act of imagination, of birthing cultural icons from nothing, was worth only the initial paycheck. The family's message in response was clear. Our parents created mythos that define modern culture. Their value extends far beyond what corporate America decided to pay them in the 1960s. The ripple effects are already transforming the industry landscape. Warner Brothers, seeing the writing on the wall, has reportedly begun proactive outreach to DC creator estates. Sony, facing its own Spider-Man rights challenges, is reconsidering how it treats creative legacies. Even Universal, which clutches its partial Hulk rights like a security blanket, knows that respect is now a business necessity, not a corporate nicety. The true power of this victory lies in what it symbolizes. These families essentially forced Disney to acknowledge that financial success must be shared with those who planted the seeds of that success. It's a principle that extends far beyond entertainment. In tech, in fashion, in any industry where creativity drives profit, the message is the same: respect the creator or face the consequences. Disney attempted to create a monopoly on pop culture mythology, only to be reminded that mythology belongs to the mythmakers first. What the creator families achieved goes beyond individual compensation. They've created a template for artistic justice in the corporate age. Every future creator entering Hollywood now knows they have ammunition if their legacy is disrespected. Every corporation knows that the cost of dishonoring creators' families has now been demonstrated in public, expensive litigation. The emotional impact cannot be overstated. These are children watching their parents' life work transformed into global phenomena. While being treated as legal obstacles to profit, the settlements represent more than financial resolution. They represent emotional justice for families who've carried the weight of feeling invisible in plain sight. For Marvel fans specifically, there's now a deeper emotional connection to every character on screen. Knowing that these characters' creators' families fought for recognition adds gravitas to every appearance of Iron Man, Spider-Man, or Doctor Strange. These aren't just CGI spectacles. They're the visual manifestations of a real-world battle for creative respect. The transformation in corporate culture doesn't stop at Disney's doorstep. The entire entertainment ecosystem is recalibrating. Streaming services are reconsidering creator contracts. Production companies are building more ethical frameworks. Even theme parks are examining how they honor the artists behind their attractions. The message has been received industry-wide. As new Marvel projects continue production, each carries the DNA of this struggle. Robert Downey Jr. returning as Dr. Doom isn't just a casting decision. It's happening in a world where creator families now have a seat at the table. The power dynamics have shifted irrevocably. The ultimate irony is that by forcing Disney to respect its creative foundation, these families may have actually saved the Marvel brand's soul. Characters have deeper meaning when their creation stories include dignity and recognition. Audiences connect more powerfully when they know the architects of their myths are honored. Looking ahead, the industry faces a new paradigm. The creator families have proven that the little guy can win, that corporate giants can be held accountable, that creative justice is possible. They've transformed the entertainment industry's moral compass, one settlement at a time. This victory resonates beyond Hollywood. Every worker who's ever felt undervalued, every family that's fought for recognition, every artist who's wondered about their legacy, they all see themselves in these Marvel creator families. It's a universal story of standing up for human dignity in the face of corporate indifference. The message is clear and unmistakable. Respect is not negotiable, creativity has eternal value, and families will fight for justice even against the most powerful corporations on Earth. The Avengers may save the world on screen, but their creators' families have saved something equally precious: the soul of artistic collaboration. This war between the Avengers and Disney isn't new. It's just the latest round in a silent battle that's been raging behind the scenes for years. The legal war behind closed doors. The battleground was set long before the public knew war had been declared. It's 2021. The MCU is riding high on Endgame's success. Disney executives are counting their billions. But in the shadows, copyright termination notices are being filed like grenades thrown into Disney's legal department. The countdown to corporate reckoning has begun, and nobody at Disney is prepared for what's coming. These weren't random families looking for a payday. These were the estates of Marvel's foundational architects, armed with a powerful weapon: the U.S. Copyright Act. The law that says after 35 years, creators creators can reclaim their work from corporate hands. Disney's response was swift and brutal preemptive lawsuits that screamed, "How dare you challenge our absolute ownership?" Let's talk about what really happened behind those mahogany doors. Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange; Don Heck, the artistic genius behind Iron Man and Black Widow; Gene Colan, who gave us Captain Marvel and Falcon. These names weren't just credits on old comics. They were the architects of what would become a $22 billion movie franchise. Yet Disney's legal strategy treated them like common thieves trying to steal Disney property. The psychological warfare was textbook corporate intimidation. Disney, with its virtually unlimited legal budget, structured its lawsuits to drain the estate's resources. They knew most families couldn't survive a protracted battle, but they miscalculated spectacularly. The legal arguments Disney employed were masterfully cynical. The work-for-hire doctrine was wielded like a blunt instrument. Their position: if you were paid a day rate in 1963, you forfeit all future rights forever. Period. No discussion, no acknowledgement that your creation would become worth billions. Just a cold, corporate, we paid you what we agreed. But here's what the lawsuits really revealed about Disney's corporate philosophy. In internal documents that came to light, the company's position was that these were annoyances to be eliminated through legal pressure, not creative partners to be respected, not foundation layers of their empire. Annoyances. That word alone cost Disney millions in public relations damage. The estates banded together in what became known as the Creator Coalition. They shared resources, coordinated legal strategies, and most importantly, shared emotional support. While Disney's lawyers processed these challenges as legal puzzles to solve, these families were fighting for their loved ones' legacies. The emotional stakes couldn't have been more asymmetrical. Consider the specific characters at stake. Iron Man had grossed over $8 billion in box office revenue alone. Spider-Man, with Tom Holland's portrayals, added another $6 billion to Disney's coffers, even with Sony's share. Black Widow, Hawkeye, Falcon, each represents hundreds of millions in revenue streams. Yet the families who created these icons had to fight tooth and nail just to be recognized as more than hired hands from the 1960s. The first settlement came in June 2023. Larry Lieber and the estates of Don Heck, Gene Colan, and Don Rico reached agreements with Marvel. The terms were sealed, but industry insiders suggest Disney finally realized that the cost of continued litigation exceeded the cost of fair compensation. The message was sent: challenge us, and you might just win. Steve Ditko's estate held out longer. The Spider-Man co-creators' representatives knew they held the strongest hand. Spider-Man wasn't just another character. He was Marvel's crown jewel, especially after the Sony partnership. The psychological pressure from Disney intensified, but Ditko's estate had learned from watching DC's treatment of Superman's creators. They refused to blink. The final settlement came in December 2023. Terms undisclosed, but the joint filing mentioned amicable resolution, corporate speak for "we paid what they demanded to make this go away." Disney had been forced into a corner: continue fighting and risk setting legal precedent that could affect their entire catalog, or settle quietly and maintain the illusion of absolute control. Behind the scenes, industry lawyers report that Disney's legal teams were rattled. For decades, they'd operated under the assumption that their contracts were bulletproof. The creator lawsuits exposed vulnerabilities in a legal framework built on 1960 S-era understanding of intellectual property. The corporate machinery designed to crush opposition had encountered something it couldn't defeat: generational determination. The parallel legal battle with InterDigital Inc. over patent infringement in Marvel films demonstrates Disney's broader legal challenges. When multiple fronts open simultaneously, even Disney's vast resources become strained. The creator families were part of a larger pattern. Disney's aggressive business model was making enemies faster than it could eliminate them. What these lawsuits really uncovered was the human cost of corporate indifference. Legal documents detailed how creators worked in tiny apartments while Disney executives lived in mansions, how sketches worth billions were sold for grocery money, how the architects of modern mythology died without seeing their creations' true value. The settlements created a new legal framework for the industry. Entertainment lawyers report unprecedented interest in creator-friendly contracts following the Marvel resolutions. Studios are preemptively renegotiating old deals to avoid future lawsuits. The creator estates set a precedent that will echo through entertainment law for decades. Disney's attempt to paint these lawsuits as greedy families seeking undeserved riches backfired spectacularly. Public sentiment sided overwhelmingly with the creators' heirs. Social media campaigns highlighted the stark contrast between corporate profits and creator compensation. The narrative Disney tried to control slipped through their fingers like sand. The legal war revealed something fundamental about modern entertainment economics. The line between creator and corporation wasn't meant to be a chasm. These lawsuits forced acknowledgement that creative collaborations require ongoing respect, not just initial payment. Disney's resistance to this principle cost them far more than proactive fairness would have. As litigation dragged on, internal Disney documents suggested growing concern about brand damage. much. The company that built its empire on family values was publicly fighting the families of their creative foundations. The irony wasn't lost on the public. Every Spider-Man ticket sold came with questions about whether his creator's family was being fairly treated. The settlements represent more than legal resolution. They mark a turning point in corporate America's relationship with creative labor. If entertainment giants can be forced to respect creator legacies, what about tech innovators, fashion designers, software developers? The precedent stretches beyond Hollywood's borders. For the creator families, the legal journey was both vindication and ordeal. Years of stress, uncertainty, and public scrutiny took their toll, but they emerged victorious, having proven that David can indeed defeat Goliath when armed with justice and determination. Their message to future creators and heirs: your rights are worth fighting for, no matter how powerful the opposition. The closed-door negotiations that preceded the final settlements reportedly involved emotional appeals, not just financial discussions. Disney executives, perhaps for the first time, had to hear directly from families about what their loved ones' creations meant. The corporate machine was forced to confront the human hearts beating behind the balance sheets, the puppet strings of corporate control. Behind every Marvel movie, every Disney Plus series, every theme park attraction lies a shadowy world of corporate manipulation that would make any supervillain proud. The creator battles weren't isolated incidents. They were windows into a systematic approach to creative control that has redefined what it means to own art in the modern age. Welcome to Disney's real magic kingdom, where creativity is commoditized and artists become assets on a balance sheet. Let's expose the machinery. When Disney acquired Marvel in 2009, they weren't just buying characters. They were establishing a template for corporate content control that would reshape the entertainment industry. The VidAngel case from 2016 reveals this strategy perfectly. A small family-friendly streaming service trying to offer filtering technology gets crushed with a $62 million lawsuit. The message: innovation is only allowed when Disney controls it. The beauty of Disney's control mechanism lies in its multi-layered approach. First, buy the company outright. Then use legal warfare to establish dominance. Finally, reshape market expectations to their advantage. The creator families found themselves caught in this exact machinery, fighting not just for compensation, but for the very concept of creator autonomy.
I'd never heard that pretty little face. Do you moisturize?
Sometimes.
You bet your sweet ass you moisturize. There's probably all kinds of moisture on that face.
Thank you?
Gosh, Mr. Stark, you're real handsome. Shut your goddamn mouth, goofy!
This chilling exchange captures the psychological manipulation at the heart of corporate control, maintaining a friendly facade while wielding absolute power. The 2019 Fox acquisition showcases this strategy at scale. Disney didn't just buy Fox for X-Men and Fantastic Four rights. They eliminated a competitor that might have challenged their narrative control. Even the Department of Justice recognized the antitrust implications. When government regulators feel compelled to intervene, you know the power concentration has reached critical mass. But control isn't just about acquisition. It's about redefining value. Disney masterfully convinced the industry that characters created for $20 per page in 1963 had no ongoing value to their creators. That billion-dollar franchises built on these foundations owed nothing to the architects. It's economic gaslighting at corporate scale. The 2023 antitrust claims regarding streaming services expose another control mechanism. Disney wasn't content with owning content. They needed to control distribution channels. When consumers filed lawsuits alleging onerous contracts that stifled competition, U.S. District Judge Edward Davila validated these concerns. The pattern is clear. Total vertical integration equals total control. Consider the psychological warfare employed against creator families. Disney's strategy wasn't just legal. It was designed to exhaust and demoralize. By treating creative families as legal annoyances rather than valued partners, they signaled a corporate philosophy where control trumps respect. The message to future creators: your work has value, but you don't. The Redbox dispute from 2012 provides another illuminating example. Disney accused a DVD rental company of unfair competition, essentially claiming that even secondary distribution challenged their control. The pattern repeats. Any business model not controlled by Disney becomes a target for elimination. What's particularly insidious about this control mechanism is its self-perpetuating nature. By buying critics, influencing media coverage, and shaping industry narratives, Disney creates an environment where challenging their control seems futile. They've convinced many that this level of corporate power is not just normal, but necessary for entertainment production.
Good work out there today, team.
Hulk smash criminals.
Shame about all those apartment blocks, though.
Hulk was preventing future crime.
This dialogue perfectly encapsulates corporate doublespeak. We're heroes for eliminating competition before it threatens us. The creator settlements forced a crack in this control apparatus. For the first time, individual artist families proved they could challenge the machine and win. This wasn't just about money. It was about breaking the psychological hold that absolute corporate control had established over creative industries. Internal documents revealed during litigation exposed Disney's true philosophy. References to creators as contracted workers rather than creative partners showed how thoroughly dehumanized the creative process had become. Artists weren't collaborators in building mythologies. They were temporary employees whose relevance ended with their paychecks. The corporate control extends beyond just financial considerations. Disney has effectively created a mythological monopoly. By controlling both Marvel and potentially DC, had the Warner Brothers deal succeeded, they would have owned the modern American pantheon. These aren't just movie franchises. They're cultural touchstones that shape generational values and understanding. The settlements revealed another layer of control: information manipulation. When terms remained undisclosed and described as amicable, Disney maintained its preferred narrative while likely paying substantial sums behind closed doors. They control not just the content, but the story of the content's creation and ownership. What makes this control mechanism particularly dangerous is its invisibility to casual observers. Audiences see beloved characters and don't question the power structures behind them. The creator lawsuits pulled back the curtain on an industry where corporate control had calcified into creative tyranny. The ripple effects of challenging this control extend beyond entertainment. When creator families proved that corporate power could be questioned and changed, they inspired similar challenges across industries. The message resonated: no corporation, regardless of size or power, is above accountability to the human beings whose creativity fuels their empires. Disney's attempt to paint these legal challenges as threats to the entertainment industry's economic model backfired spectacularly. Instead, it exposed how that model relied on creative exploitation dressed up as business necessity. The settlements forced acknowledgement that sustainable success requires respecting, not erasing, creative origins. The control apparatus Disney built was designed to be impenetrable. Contracts so complex they intimidated challenge. Legal resources so vast they outmatched opposition. PR machinery so powerful it shaped public perception. Yet the creator families found the weak point: the court of public opinion and the principle of creative justice. Disney used to control creative output. We see a cautionary tale about corporate power in the creative industries. The settlements don't just represent legal victories. They represent the beginning of a recalibration where control shifts from absolute corporate power to balanced creative partnerships. Future creators and their families now understand that these strings can be cut, that the puppet can fight back. Disney's empire isn't built on contracts alone. It's built on creative minds that deserve recognition beyond their initial compensation. The creator battles proved that even Disney's sophisticated control system has vulnerabilities when faced with determined opposition and public scrutiny. In the end, the war between the Avengers and Disney wasn't just a legal battle. It was a powerful stand against a system that often treats creativity like a commodity. For years, Disney built its empire on the backs of beloved characters, unforgettable stories, and the brilliance of the people behind them. But when those same people asked for fairness, for recognition, for a piece of what they helped build, they were met with silence, red tape, and closed doors. What started as private negotiations turned into a public reckoning. The Avengers, both on screen and behind the scenes, became symbols of resistance, not to storytelling, but to the corporate machine that tried to control it. Families of creators, lawyers, and even actors stepped up, not just for money, but for legacy, for the right to say, this was ours too. And now, the ripple effects are impossible to ignore. Disney, once seen as untouchable, has had to face real questions about ownership, ethics, and the future of entertainment. Will this lead to a new era where creators have more power? Or will the mouse behind the curtain find new ways to tighten its grip? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. The Avengers may have saved the universe on screen, but off-screen, they just might have saved the soul of Hollywood. What are your thoughts on the Avengers taking a stand against Disney? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more untold truths from behind the scenes, click on the cards on screen now.